Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily for Friday, May 2nd. Not only did we make it to the end of the week, we've made it to a new month. A day late, but it's okay. Here to herald in the end of the week and the beginning of a new month is my co-host today, Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm celebrating May.
I would be celebrating May as well if my AC was on, but it is not, so I'm very hot. But that shouldn't stop everyone else from enjoying the good weather. If you're in the DC area, it's very sunny and warm. David, unfortunately, could not join us today. He's in transit, but he'll be back next week. Fear not. We didn't get rid of him. We have to kind of keep him around since he signs our checks. But speaking of signing checks, President Trump's 2026 budget proposal, which is set for release today, is expected to outline major cuts to federal programs, reflecting his administration's priorities and vision for his second term, such as one exists. Though presidential budgets are not law, they serve as influential frameworks for congressional debate and signal the administration's values. Led by Budget Chief Russell Vought, the plan may include rescissions for funds for agencies like USAID and public broadcasting, which we'll get to in our second story, alongside potential new revenue from tariffs. I would like to see the outline for that. While Republicans push forward with a companion bill on tax cuts and spending reductions, Democrats are preparing strong opposition, warning of harmful impacts on essential government services. Curious to see what this will be. I doubt there will be many surprises. We kind of know, for lack of a better term, the vision of this administration, which is slash everything except for defense and build up the government when it comes to defense spending on the Golden Dome. I'm sure we'll see increases for immigration enforcement and cuts to everything that is actually helpful that our government provides. That is my bold prediction for what will be in this budget proposal. Well, we're going to skip Minna's story because my next story kind of ties directly into the first, which is that President Trump signed an order instructing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to cut funding to PBS and NPR, accusing them of biased and partisan coverage. The order argues that taxpayer-funded media undermines journalistic independence in a diverse media landscape. Despite the directive, Congress has already approved CPB funding through 2027, limiting the order's immediate impact. Critics, including media rights groups, warn the move threatens press freedom and could severely affect access to trusted news sources for millions of Americans. This seems like virtue signaling from the administration, which, to be fair, a lot of Trump's executive orders have kind of gone beyond his legal ability in executive orders and seem to more just kind of influence policy, or at least attempt to. And this seems like a pretty desperate attempt, given that funding is already secured through 2027. So there's nothing that can really be done for 2 years, which is good because PBS and NPR are important assets for the American people to stay informed. They are not biased or partisan, which is part of their benefit. They provide quality programming for children and adults alike. And I think it's one of the many things that our government does provide that is just a net benefit. So I hope this executive order goes nowhere, but we'll see. I guess in 2027, when that funding lapses, maybe we'll see then. But hopefully in the meantime, this will have pretty limited impact.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to viewers like you and me, these programs get a lot of funding that comes outside of the government. So the good news is that even if the federal government tries to get in the way of these programs or tries to shut down these programs because of outside funding, it would be very hard for the government to completely shut down and get rid of these programs. They just will have to, unfortunately, undergo layoffs and restructuring, which is bad. And we should have a government that wants to have people working there who can get these jobs done. But we know that that is not the case with this government. The other thing that this makes me think about is in the 90s when the government tried to shut down these programs, and then like PBS sent Big Bird to Congress and had Big Bird do lobbying. I think those are great visuals, and I hope we get visuals like that again, because I think a lot of people hear PBS and NPR and they think it's bad, but they don't really realize that that means that children's television is going away, and that Big Bird is going away, and Elmo is going away, and all of these characters that people love and rely on to educate their children, they're getting eliminated as well. So I'm hoping we get good visuals that get people angry about this possibility, so angry that this administration has no other choice but to abandon this endeavor.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think NPR is really saved by being tied to PBS because PBS. Almost everyone has a positive memory of watching PBS when they were little, and has an attachment to Sesame Street, and I think that kind of visceral emotional reaction is going to save them both. Because when you tell people you're going to get rid of Sesame Street, unless you're somebody who's militantly right wing and thinks that like Sesame Street is political now because there's like a gay character, outside of those fringe cases, I think almost everyone has a positive view of Sesame Street and PBS in general. So I think this will be unpopular.
Yeah, I mean, people might not care about the broader, people are going to lose their jobs. It's hard for some people to put a face to that. But when they give you Big Bird and they're like, Big Bird is going to lose his job, Big Bird is going to be out on the street, like people don't want that. And so I'm hopeful that this is short-lived. But moving to other unfortunate news that hopefully won't make it any further than this story. The Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to end deportation protections for over 600,000 Venezuelans under the Temporary Protected Status Program, arguing the protections interfere with executive authority and foreign policy. A federal judge halted the administration's move, citing a lack of evidence, improper procedure, and racial animus, particularly criticizing remarks from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The legal battle now hinges on whether the Supreme Court will intervene, as requested in the administration's broader immigration agenda. Yeah, I mean, my hope, I'm sure as many people's hope is, that the Supreme Court will not let this happen. It seems like they won't let this happen. They have interfered before and tried to stop the Trump administration from doing these illegal things. And to continue on this logistical analysis of this story, I don't really know how the Trump administration will carry this out if the Supreme Court does let it happen. Like, I don't know logistically how they would do this. So I'm hoping that there are like multiple things standing in their way to prevent this from happening. But on a more emotional side, obviously this is horrible. The Trump administration doesn't care whether these people are citizens or not citizens. It's really scary stuff as the Trump administration continues to just like take people and send them away. Like people are just disappearing, and that's not good. And I'm hoping that people will obviously still care about the economy, but I'm hoping that people will, in addition to that, start caring about people being taken from their homes and sent to other places. I am hopeful that that will get people just as angry as some of the tariff and tax stuff that's going on as well. So this is a story that should make people just as angry, if not more angry, than the PBS story and the NPR story and the tariff stories. Like this is just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, I'm no legal expert, but it seems to me that it would be in the Supreme Court's best interest to not go along with this, strictly from the standpoint, I mean, from a lot of standpoints, but from the standpoint of the administration is still not complying with their ruling on bringing back wrongly deported people. So it seems to me that just capitulating to what the administration wants to do on this is not a good look for the court. I think now is the time they really need to stand firm, aside from their ideologies of certain justices, and make a stand against this administration. So I don't really know. I don't know the legality of this particular issue, but it seems to me that it would be in the Supreme Court's best interest to not go along with this, to continue to kind of assert the judicial power that is necessary. But
Yeah, and then
we'll see.
sorry. I think like a follow up to that would be like what happens if the Supreme Court says that they can't do this and then the Trump administration does it anyways. So that's definitely something that I was thinking about while reading this story. It seems like other rulings that courts have made, the Trump administration is just kind of steamrolled over, and I'm wondering how long they're going to get away with that.
Yeah, that it certainly remains to be seen. Hopefully they won't get away with it much longer, but I don't really know. Because unfortunately, courts don't have a lot of enforcement capabilities, especially when it is the president of the United States just saying, I'll ignore that. Well, speaking of President Trump, which pretty much all our stories focus on President Trump today, as they often do, President Trump has announced plans to revoke Harvard University's tax-exempt status and block over $2 billion in federal funding, escalating the standoff over free speech, campus protests, and anti-Semitism. This is not the first time Trump has made clear his intentions to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status, and the administration has already issued sweeping demands for policy changes at Harvard, including reforms to DEI programs, admissions, and student conduct oversight. While Harvard has taken limited steps toward compliance, it insists on preserving its independence and constitutional rights. Not a lot to add. You know, we've said it before on the show, but Harvard University is probably one of the last universities you really want to go after. As a incredibly prestigious university that essentially everyone knows and has produced some of the best lawyers in the country, just does not seem like a smart use of the administration's time or energy. But hey, I mean, I guess if they want to spend their time bashing themselves against the rock of Harvard University instead of deporting people or doing other horrific acts, they're free to waste their time. I don't really see this going in the administration's favor in the long run, either from actually getting these policies passed or public perception. But I don't know. I mean, it's always possible that Harvard will capitulate at some point, but they have been the most firm of the universities so far. So I hope that continues.
Yeah, I do as well. And our last story today, not about Trump, but about the Trump administration.
I guess that's better.
Question mark. Well, let's read the story and determine whether or not it's better. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. plans to require placebo-controlled trials for all new vaccines, a significant departure from current practices that many medical experts warn could slow vaccine development and reduce access. While Kennedy and the Health and Human Services Department claim the move promotes safety and transparency, critics argue it spreads misinformation, undermines trust in proven immunizations, and may lead to ethically questionable practices, particularly for well-established vaccines like those for measles. The proposal has sparked widespread concern among public health officials who fear it could disrupt the country's vaccine infrastructure and jeopardize responses to future outbreaks. Yeah, this is a mess. And just to focus on like one thing from this, because like we could do a whole podcast on just how like scary this story is. But there are lots of vaccines that scientists do test through placebo-controlled trials. And then there are other ones that they don't, because like ethically, they're not going to kill people to see if the vaccine works against a disease. And now this new Health and Human Services Department is saying, you know what? We should just let people die from crazy diseases to see if these vaccines are working or not, which is not a good look for them, and it's kind of an insane stance to be taking, although it does seem in line with how RFK Jr. kind of operates. But I don't see how this goes over well. But it's scary, and it makes me nervous about the future, not only in terms of just like the flu vaccine, for example, but also like what happens if COVID happens again.
Yeah.
And
I
now we have to
mean,
wait for them to do this placebo controlled trial, and then like how many people are going to die from that? So I don't know.
well, I mean, this makes sense if you're RFK Jr. and you don't believe in the efficacy of vaccines, right? Because obviously he's trying to prove that they don't work, which will not go his way. I mean, I don't think any amount of proof would convince RFK Jr. at this point, which is why he hires quack doctors and only cites quack doctors as opposed to the vast majority of doctors that believe in the efficacy of vaccines. But, you know, this has been a specialty of this administration, which is taking shit that's working and breaking it beyond repair. And, you know, they've done it with global trade, and they're going to do it with vaccines, putting the lives of millions of Americans at risk. And as with tariffs, I think, God forbid, if there's another outbreak, we're going to see the effect on the popularity of this administration take a massive hit, as it did with COVID. And, you know, say what you will about the administration, they were responsible for Operation Warp Speed first time around, which got us vaccines pretty quickly. And I unfortunately don't think if there is another outbreak, we will see that kind of operation again, given the quacks he has in charge of key health agencies. So we have to just cross our fingers and hope that for the next few years, there is no big outbreak,
Oh, yeah.
because I do not trust RFK Jr. and his cronies to keep me healthy and safe.
This move, like it slows down the vaccine process significantly. So I don't even know if we could do Operation Warp Speed because of how slow this new vaccine procedural is. So I don't know. I'm trusting the health officials on this one. Bad
Yeah.
idea.
Fun stuff. Lots of positive stories to talk about to herald in the weekend. You're welcome. But, you know, hey, it's the weekend now. So that means we will not be talking about the news, which is somewhat of a blessing these days. But fear not, we'll be back to depress you with more news each and every day next week, right here on the DSR Network and right here on the DSR Daily. But until then, enjoy the weekend. If you're at a place where there's good weather, enjoy it. If you're at a place where it's not, unfortunately, I know there's a lot of storms throughout the U.S. right now. Stay safe and join us again on Monday. And until then, bye-bye.